Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of He Says, She Says Film Reviews. And tonight, let's play a little game. Because I'm Dave G.
And I'm Lee G.
And tonight we're taking a look at Spiral from the Book of Saw, the brand new movie in the Saw franchise. Now, who would have thought all of those years ago when two film students here in Melbourne at the Victorian College of the Arts made a little movie called Saw, a little student film. Those two filmmakers were James Wan and Lee Winnell, and they went on to create one of the biggest horror franchises of all time, and probably should point out that they created a few more after that as well. But Saw is the little franchise that just keeps on growing and growing and growing. Now, the new film in the series is called Spiral from the Book of Saw, and this film came about because Chris Rock was at an award show with some of the executive producers of Lionsgate films, and he pitched an idea to them that he had for Saw, and they agreed with it. And now Mr. Rock finds himself playing Detective Zeke Banks, a young detective who is on the outer with his squad, or with his station that he's stationed at, because he dobbed in a corrupt police officer. And not even the fact that his father, Marcus, played by Samuel L. Jackson, was the police chief at that time, could cover up the fact that he was now considered a snitch or a dog by the rest of the police in his station. And they put him on the outer to the point where he was actually shot at one point because nobody came to help him when he needed it. Now, has a little bit of a chance of redemption here because he is teamed up with a young cop called William Shank, played by Max Minghella, and he finds himself working together to try and solve the crimes of a brand new Spiral Book of Saw killer that is out there recreating the murders of Jigsaw, of course. Now, I don't know about you, but I was at the point where I was actually getting a little bit tired of Saw films after a while because they were all starting to be very, very similar. But then the last film, which was a prequel, I actually thought brought life back into the series. So what do you think of the new Spiral from the Book of Saw?
Well, there's definitely gruesome scenes in here, very graphic scenes. It scares me a little bit to know people think up these things. It's pretty disgusting, some of the things that happen. So you kind of, cringing in your seat a little bit, and you don't really want to see those scenes, but you can't not look either because you want to know what's going on. The detective work is always, wanting to know that a case is going to be solved. That always brings you in. You want that, the intrigue of it. You want to know what's happened and how they're going to work it out. I think one of the suspects they tried to make look like the obvious person that was committing crime, but it was too obvious and you knew that's not the person that's done it. So, so I think that was a little bit, rookie mistake that they're trying to make you think it's someone, but it's just too obvious and it's not really going to be that person. It definitely had the Saw feel, and there's, definite revenge, fighting for justice in a horrible way, but fighting for justice, and the targeting of cops. The twist isn't very surprising. I'm not sure what other people thought, but I'd kind of figured it out myself. Now, within the film, there is some good actors. We've already mentioned some of them. So Chris Rock, playing a detective, Samuel L. Jackson, Marcus Banks. Now, he doesn't have a huge role in this one, but it is good to see him in there. Max Minghella, now he's recently been on The Handmaid's Tale, so those that have been watching that, and yeah, he's proving to be quite a good actor. We've got Marisol Nichols, who has been in Riverdale as well. So there's some really good people within the cast here, and they all do a good job. Now, I have noted, over the Saw franchise that we started with Lee Winnell and James Wan, so they were the original Saws. And then you get to Saw 4, 5, 6, and then you've got different writers, Patrick Melton and Marcus Dunstan, I think. And then by the time you get to Jigsaw, you've got 2 new writers again. I think it's Joel Stolberg and Pete Goldfinger.
Who wrote this one as well?
And who also wrote this one. So there's numerous writers over the whole franchise. Now, in some ways, I think, you want it to be the originals who have written it and directed it so that it's consistent and it builds on what they've started on. But at the same time, they've done quite a good job with this as well. The suspense is still there. The moments of frustration of, why would they do that? Why are they running that way? The frustration is there. The audience becomes involved because, you want to see things, stopped, or you want to see people not making mistakes so that there's not an end to someone's life and things like that. So if you like the Saw franchise, I think you will like this. But it is not for the faint-hearted. It is certainly not something I can take a lot of my girlfriends to or anything like that, just because the graphic scenes are very graphic.
Yeah. I think what you were saying before about Lee Winnell and James Wan not being involved, I think that was one of the reasons why I was growing a little bit tired of this franchise. I know I had a chat in an interview with Lee Winnell for his last film before The Invisible Man, and we were talking about Saw and how many films there'd been since he'd been involved with it, and there was one of the Saw films, and I don't think it was Jigsaw, it might have been the one just before that, and he admitted to me that he didn't even know the film was being made until he saw the poster for it up in LA on a billboard, and it's like, that's how far removed he is from that franchise now, that he doesn't even know when a new Saw film is coming out. But to their credit, Darren Lynn Bousman, who is the director of this one, he has been involved in the Saw franchise for a while now. So I guess that familiarity is there. But I think true fans of Saw that I know have watched this film have pointed out something that you pointed out before. It's been quite obvious for them who the killer is very early on. Just because different things that have happened in other Saw films now I'm being careful how I say this so I don't give anything away. Things that happen in other Saw films don't happen in this film around the guilty character. And people have picked up on that and have kind of guessed it. And I know from my co-host from my other podcast, when we saw this movie together, he actually leaned across to me about a quarter of a way into the movie and told me who he thought the killer was. So that was how obvious it came for him. The big surprise for me in this film was Chris Rock. I was really worried when I heard that Chris Rock was acting in this film, because I haven't always been a huge Chris Rock film. I love his fan. I love his comedy, but I found his comedy films over the years are quite often kind of lacking. So I was kind of worried when I heard that he was playing a straight-laced detective in a Saw film. But I actually liked his character. Early on, it did feel like he was trying to put his comedy routine into the character, but then you find out that he's not playing himself in the opening minutes of the thing. He's undercover, and then that goes away, and I actually quite liked his performance. Like, I could happily see Chris Rock doing dramatic movies from here on in, because I thought he was actually quite good in this film when he had to do dramatic moments. Like, because this film is all about other cops getting killed by this killer, quite often he's in really dramatic scenes where the person who has just been killed is someone that he knew. And I thought he did a really good job with that. Did you find the same thing, that him playing a dramatic role was actually quite good?
Yeah, when I saw the previews for this movie, I was actually tossing up whether it was a movie that I would want to watch, just because I wasn't sure about Chris Rock's acting ability in terms of a serious type character. He's good at comedy, and he does that well. But I was very surprised that he actually did a really good job, and he was convincing in the role for sure.
I thought the feel of this film too was different to the other Saw films. This almost felt like a Saw mystery set in an episode of The Shield. It had that bleached yellow look that they used in The Shield a lot for Los Angeles. There's a heat wave during this film. So the actors are running around a lot of the time with sweat marks underneath their arms and stuff like that. And that adds, I thought, to the feel of this film. What did you think of the fact, and this is something that I've been thinking about a lot with this movie, it's kind of ambiguous in what time period it's set. Nobody seems to have air conditioning. Everybody has like little kind of 1970s, 1980s fans. Chris Rock's character is driving a car out of the 80s, but everybody else around him seems to have modern day cars, and they're using cell phones, but a lot of other things in the film feels like it's 1970s, 1980s detective noir. Did that kind of stand out to you, that it's ambiguous when it's set?
Yeah, for sure. It didn't get in the way of me needing to know, I suppose. It was just something I noticed, but not something that detracted from the film or made it hard to follow at all.
Yeah. And what did you think of the deaths in this film? Because, of course, one of the big things in Saw films is that the murders have to be creative, original, and horrific. Did it tick off all of those boxes that Saw fans are looking for?
Yeah, definitely. I think I've already mentioned that very gruesome scenes, very graphic. And yeah, as I said earlier, it scares me to think someone makes these things up. I mean, I don't know if similar situations have happened and people have the writers have looked at police files from way back and some of these things have happened. I have no idea, but regardless, it's pretty horrible. Like the scenes of, it's torture, really.
Yeah.
It's very torturous. And they're the scenes that I said you don't want to look, but you do look because it's part of the storyline. And some people love that kind of gritty gruesomeness. I'm not so good with that. It's not that I can't cope with death or accidents, but when someone's torturing someone else, regardless of if it's revenge or someone thinks it's justice and they're in the right, for me there's that moral compass of, oh, I can't believe someone's thought of that or could do that to someone else. Yeah, so those feelings do well up in you, so I think they've done well with those scenes because, yeah, you have that, your values are being challenged and you feel that welling up within yourself with, oh, how could they do that even if they think they're right?
Yeah, I can't speak for the screenwriters on this Saw, but I know screenwriters from past Saw films have used devices that the Nazis used for torture as some of the ones that they built for it. I actually found the murders in this one, because there was a reason for them, like quite often, and I won't spoil too much, but like the first guy who gets killed in this film, he's murdered because of the lies that he's told in court, and therefore his punishment is to either have his tongue cut off or die. That's not giving anything away because the first 10 minutes of the film was out there as a trailer at one point. But I felt that those murders almost took this movie into the category of the film Seven, where people died in ways to do with their sins kind of thing. So, yeah, I thought that this film almost felt like a mix between Saw and Seven in a sense. So what's your final thoughts on Spiral from the Book of Saw?
I think, yeah, you've got to have a strong stomach to watch something like that. But if you've enjoyed the franchise to date, then I think you will like this too. Of course, I think you've got to be open to it's not the same writers as the original. And that's okay. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. But yeah, it'll have its own flavour, its own style. but it certainly does feel like it is definitely within the same franchise.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think this one and the one before it, Jigsaw, has made me kind of more intrigued to get back into Saw. I'm not saying I didn't watch the other ones, but I'd kind of fallen out of love with the franchise because of what was happening. I love that ambiguity of
Try that again, ambiguity.
ambiguity of where this of how this was the time period that it was filmed in. Love Chris Rock in the role. He really grew on me as the film went on. So I hope that they keep his character around for a while in the franchise. But yeah, just I loved that washed out heat wave LA look that they had in this film as well, and I think that really added to it. I'll be honest, I did feel, and I know a lot of other Saw fans have felt the same way, feel a little bit let down by the ending of this film, because it's a little bit cliched, but yeah, it's done more than enough to make me kind of excited to see the next Chris Rock Spiral film. So, what are you going to give this one out of 5?
I'll give it 3.5. As I said, I kind of picked up on a few things a bit early, and I kind of could see where it was going, the storyline. Not the gruesome scenes that were going to unfold, but I could see things coming, and I guess in a movie like that, I don't want to know until later on. I do want to be kept in suspense, and yeah, to be a little bit surprised by twists. So yeah, 3.5.
Yeah, I'm giving it 3 out of 5. It's definitely not as good as the original Saw films, like the first 2 or 3, but it's nowhere near as bad as what 5 and 6 and that were. So yeah, I'm going to give it 3 out of 5. And that's it for this episode of He Says, She Says Film Reviews. I'm Dave G.
And I'm Lee G.
And we'll be back soon with another episode.